Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this son of San Antonio, invited to be the Martin Luther King speaker, an award-winning journalist, a wonderful young man, and a friend of ours, chosen by for many, many years, Mr. Cary Clack. Please take the stage. Woo! Woo!
Good afternoon. Thank you, Aranetta. The thing that she said that I liked best was when she called me a young man. At 62, I don't get called that too much anymore. But I want to thank Aranetta, who is like an aunt to me. I want to thank Doreen Robinson and the MLK Commission for blessing me with this honor. Want to thank everyone here in body and spirit who helped make this holiday and this march possible. And I want to acknowledge and commend the Alamo Trust for marching in memory of our friend, Dr. Cary Lattimore. But before we move on, we must acknowledge the woman who first envisioned this holiday and who worked harder than anyone to make it happen. And that is, of course, Coretta Scott King. Give her a round of applause. I'm still amazed at times that a Black man has a national holiday in this country, but I am never surprised that it was a Black woman who made it possible. "12 years and 4 months. 12 years and 4 months. That was the length of time that Martin Luther King Jr. was on the public stage. 12 years and 4 months. From Montgomery to Memphis, from buses to a balcony, from ascension to assassination. 12 years and 4 months. During that time in a life which lasted but 39 years, King was a drum major for justice, who wielded the baton of nonviolence in leading marches of conscience through the streets of America and the contours of a soul, challenging the nation to be true to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution, and faithful to the Judeo-Christian heritage she claimed. To the rhythm of freedom songs, and with the resolve that nothing would turn them around, the women, men, and children of the civil rights movement marched this nation closer to a representative democracy as King marched himself into immortality and a holiday. Since we last gathered 3 years ago in this place for this purpose, so much has happened to change our lives, our nation, and our world. The pandemic happened. George Floyd happened. January 6th happened. The invasion of Ukraine happened. Uvalde happened. These events showcase the racial and economic inequities and violence representing what King called the triple evils of poverty, racism, and war. That San Antonio, a city with a small African-American population, annually hosts one of the largest, if not the largest, MLK march in the nation, has long been a source of astonishment, though it shouldn't be. King's ministry was one of inclusion. The scope of his vision and work transcended race, nationality, religion. Why wouldn't a world historical figure have appealed beyond the narrow constraints of ethnicity? especially to a city as culturally rich and diverse as San Antonio. When it comes to democracy, King is the youngest of our founding fathers, and the civil rights movement was nothing less than a movement to expand democracy, to claim citizenship, and broaden the definition of who is American. If in the 18th century, the founding fathers gave life to the nation, and if in the 19th century, Abraham Lincoln fought to keep the body politic together, it was King in the 20th century who led the struggle to redeem America's soul. As a man and thinker, King is too complex to be defined by one speech, "I have a dream." But it's convenient and comfortable for some people to reduce King to that one speech, so they won't be challenged by the King who demanded that we do more than dream. King transcends race, religion, and nationality because the values he advocated, love, justice, peace, are universal. And because the beloved community he envisioned is something to which most of us aspire. King can belong to anyone, but he can't be all things to everyone. You can't take his words out of context to mean something he didn't mean, to use as a protective shield to justify policies which can't be justified. The comfortable King is like a Christmas ornament we pull off the shelf each year and dust off to display our Martin Luther King Jr. holiday spirit. The challenging King asks that we live out the courage of our convictions year-round. The comfortable King was non-threatening. The challenging King was shot. Prophets become more loved after they become martyrs. The comfortable King, some think, was always popular and loved by everyone. The challenging King, at the time of his assassination, had a Harris poll public disapproval rating of nearly 75%. And it should also be noted that in 2016, the Washington Post looked at polling data of the civil rights era and found that 57% of Americans believe demonstrations such as lunch counter sit-ins and freedom rides would hurt Black people's cause for civil rights. And in the days leading up to the March on Washington, when King gave his "I Have a Dream" speech, 60% of Americans thought the march was a bad idea. The activism of the civil rights movement was never popular until long after the fact. And it's important to remember this today, because today there are many young people here, many young activists advocating many different causes. Some of those causes may scare you. Some of them may make you uncomfortable. Some of them you may disagree with. Some you just don't know how you feel about. But 20, 25, 30 years from now, it's very possible that these young people, these young activists, may be celebrated as prophets for drawing our attention to issues we didn't want to confront, but they forced us to address. So debate them, disagree with them, intellectually engage with them, but don't dismiss these young activists around us today. You can't separate Martin Luther King Jr. and nonviolence from policy and politics, when the goal of the movement was to allow disenfranchised people to add their voices to policy. and politics. But you can't misrepresent who King was to justify who you are. We can divine from what King did say and write what he would say today. A man who in his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, challenged America to be honest about her crippling legacy of racism. Would speak out against the bogus use of critical race theory to avoid teaching uncomfortable truths about U.S. history. A young dreamer who in 1963 shared his dream for the only country he'd known as his home, would in 2023 stand with a new generation of young dreamers fighting to stay in the only country they've known as their home. A man who led the march from Selma to Montgomery, leading to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, would decry the evisceration of that act and the rising tide of voter suppression laws across the country. You can't remember King by dismembering the Voting Rights Act. You can't praise the drum major of a movement to expand democracy while making it more difficult for people to vote and have their votes counted. And you're not serious about honoring King if you continue to misrepresent and mock the word woke. Woke has become a catch-all insult for some commentators and politicians to criticize anything they disagree with or which they deem too progressive. If you want more diversity, they say you're woke. If you want to battle racism, sexism, homophobia, they accuse you of being woke. If you want a more honest and unvarnished telling of American history, they say you're woke. And if the military tries to do these things, they accuse the military of being woke. Woke is used as an insult against having more open minds and open hearts. But woke and the idea of being awake has long been a part of the lexicon of African American culture. And it shouldn't be surrendered to those who don't understand it, don't want to understand it, want to misappropriate the word and casually toss it as a slur. I Googled Martin Luther King Jr. and woke, and was stunned at the number of commentaries pitting King against woke. A number of headlines saying that Martin Luther King would be against the woke mob, or that Martin Luther King Jr. would be against the woke crowd. And I was struck by the arrogance that they just knew where Dr. King would stand today in relation to what they call the woke. But let's go to the text. Let's go to the book of King. Again, and where did we go from here? Chaos or community. King said, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. On the Sunday before he was assassinated, King delivered a sermon in the National Cathedral, one which he'd given many times before, one which is titled, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. In it he said, let's stand up. Let us be a concerned generation. Let us remain awake through a great revolution. And we will speed up that great day when the American dream will be a reality. The dreamer was woke. There was no one more woke than Martin Luther King Jr. King knew that dreaming was good, that dreaming inspires you with hope, gives you a goal. But King also understood that there comes a time when you must wake up from your dream so that you can do the work to make the dream a reality. You can't rely on the mere beauty of a dream to make it real. You must work it into being. To be woke or awake is to be attentive to your surroundings, to the world, to injustices. It's to be attentive to the needs of others. To be woke is to be focused on what we as individuals and communities need to do to be better by each other. That's what nonviolence is. To be nonviolent is to be woke. Nonviolence is much more than how you'd react if someone punches you in the face. It's about what you do when you see people who have been punched by life, circumstances, and injustices. Dr. King had a PhD, but he wasn't a physician. Yet the essence of the ethic he lived by was no different than the Hippocratic Oath of physicians. First, do no harm. And when you see that harm has been done, do what you can to repair the damage, to heal, and see what you can do to prevent it from happening again. King defined nonviolence as love in action. Not a love which obligates us to like each other, but a love which commands us to respect the humanity, inherent dignity of each other, and to not add to the world's hate and violence. The essence of nonviolence is being good to each other and taking care of each other. The essence of nonviolence, from personal relationships to public policy, is treating each other with dignity and respect. It's an ethic of care and love which must be practiced in our private houses and in legislative houses. We best honor King's legacy by doing no harm and in the choices we make in how we treat others. We have the power to make better the spaces we inhabit in the time we're given on this earth. We choose to treat each other decently or not. We decide to hate or love. We choose to demonize those whose politics, religion, ethnicity, or sexuality is different from ours. We decide if it's right to give sanction to physical and other forms of violence. We decide who we despise, choose who we loathe, add or subtract to the measure of discord in our midst. Hate doesn't barge in like an unwelcome intruder. It knocks on the door and is invited in. We don't have to open that door. We don't have to make hate and violence guests in our homes and in our lives. We have the power to make someone's life more difficult through nastiness and callousness, or to lighten their burdens. In concluding, I want to say that emphatically and without debate, the greatest singing duet of all time was Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. There's no room for debate. I'm closed-minded on this. It's Marvin and Tammy. Ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't nothing like the real thing. Your precious love, if this world were mine. One of their little-known songs, but a great one nonetheless, and one of my favorites, is a song called Love Woke Me Up This Morning. Love woke me up this morning. Love woke Martin Luther King Jr. up in the morning. We march and gather because for the last 12 years and 4 months of his life, love woke King up every morning because he wouldn't be satisfied until justice rolled down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream upon this nation he loved. Love woke King up every morning with the hope that that morning would bring us one day closer to the promised land. After a night of dreaming about the world he wanted to see, love woke King up in the morning, inspired to do the work to make that dream real. Love woke us up this morning to enjoy each other's fellowship, to celebrate his life, and to thank him for lifting us closer to the mountaintop. Love woke us up this morning because we know that his work wasn't finished, that we must correct the injustices and inequities that exist. And we must stop the violence which claimed his life, steals so many others, and which threatens the life of our democracy. Yes, we must dream, but then we must do the work which makes the dream something we can touch, something which is real. In mornings to come, love will wake us up to do this work. Dream, do the work, stay woke. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.